Welcome to Being Confident from Within with Natalie Potts, the podcast that shares what it really takes to be confident. I'm passionate about helping people grow businesses with confidence. Does it seem like everyone around you is naturally confident and sure of themselves? Well, the chances are they have self-doubts just like you. I'm in conversations with inspiring individuals to share what confidence means to them and to help you find ways to believe in yourself and create confidence at any time. James, thank you so much for joining me today. I know, and I keep saying this actually at the start of conversations this week, but this is going to be a great conversation with you because we always have great conversations. So let's kick off with you sharing with listeners a bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so I'm a freelance presenter by trade. I guess it took me a while to actually become comfortable with even saying that. So after doing a drama and theatre degree, I tested out the world of acting, and then whilst acting, someone said to me to look at presenting, and I really found my groove, as it were. I found my comfortable place in a sense of, I found like with acting, trying to be someone else, I wasn't as comfortable as presenting, where I was magnifying who I already was. So before you knew it, within 6 months of trying presenting, doing a couple of presenting courses, I was on red carpets in Leicester Square, living the dream. Once upon a time, I would have called it, interviewing a who's who across Hollywood and doing celebrity junkets and all of that fun stuff. And then evolved into other stuff within the world of entertainment, presenting, then worked for the Disney Channel, Disney Junior, doing continuity with them for 3 or 4 years. Then had a bit of an existential crisis in around about 2014 of just like, what am I doing in my life? I don't want to stand on red carpets no more. I wasn't quite sure that TV was for me and the fit. So I went to Brazil for the World Cup for a month, first and foremost, as it was a bucket list thing I'd always wanted to do. And then I came back and reassessed my skill set, the things I wanted to do, and then started to explore presenting, but from a more sport and corporate perspective. And so over the last 6 years or so, I've been lucky enough to work with big brands such as Cisco, Vodafone, and then I've just begun a new journey, as it were, in motorsport as well, after working in a lot of football a few years ago.
Amazing.
And I'm really sweaty still. It's 30 degrees today, and I'm in my little office box room, but still trying to enjoy the ride.
I love that. I love that. The ride of life. I love what you do and your energy. Our energy is always a big thing with one another, isn't it? And how we get on and spark off one another in creativity, level of challenge too, I think is always useful, and a change in perspective. And I think what's unique about it for me is that I don't really have anyone like that in my space. And that's what's been great as well, is getting out there, meeting new people and the connections you can make. What does, coming on to the side of confidence, what does confidence mean to James?
As I said to you, I made some notes. For me, a little sentence that almost embodied it was, confidence is to have courage and belief in oneself and the ability to try.
Okay.
That was what I came up with, because I started thinking about, well, what does confidence mean to me? And I was thinking, well, confidence really is, when you have the belief in yourself personally, that I'm going to take a bit of a risk and I'm going to do this. It's maybe thinking a little bit outside the box, not doing the obvious general narrative, I guess you would say. And even like off the back of what you just said and the different energies that maybe I bring and pose to your life, I often challenge a lot of people to try and look at life from a different perspective. Some people say I'm a little bit lazy and work shy, but I like to challenge people to have a bit more balance in their life. We've talked about this at length in person, and that idea of sometimes I feel sorry for people, and it sounds a bit judgmental, but when so much of their identity is based around their job and their work, and it's about, okay, but who are you? What is your purpose? What do you love doing? And I'm lucky enough not to work all the time. Yeah. And what's great, and I'm quick to tell people this, and they always say, but what do you do? Don't you get bored? And again, I look at them and I'm like, oh wow, is that where you're at? That if I said to you, here's all this free time, you'd be more fearful of that than going to work to earn money for somebody else. I know not everybody has to do that, but that idea that you are dancing to somebody else's tune, shall I say.
I love the part you shared about identity based on work as well. That was definitely a space I was in last year where I guess the other side, I was really struggling because I felt I'd lost all sense of identity, hated what I did in work. And you're absolutely spot on and really interesting. Jack Canfield's got a book about, I think it's called Instant Confidence or something like that. And I was listening to it last week as an Audible. And he said this exact point about people far too often give everything to their career, and then they either retire and pass away a few years after, or something happens in work and they pass away. He goes, and they just realize that it was all about work. And yeah, it's really interesting that you shared that as well. And the energy, and I don't think you're anything like that at all when people say, what do you do? Because I know you always challenge me in my perspective and everything, like we said. And I think really the world needs more of that.
Well, coming back to what you said and then where you were at with your work, and the corporation you were working for, and that big moment of realization was similar to mine with my existential crisis in 2014. It was the feeling devalued, and there's that one pivotal moment. I know you took on a lot of extra responsibility, and then your company was like, yeah, we're not sure still though, after all this you've done for us, we're still not sure about you. And similar to me, the TV network that I was working for in 2014, I was delivering their flagship show, which gave them it was a different world to what I'm in now, but it gave them all of their celebrity shout outs for the channel, all the best content that was happening on the channel. So we had like people on like Kevin Hart, Idris Elba, Michaela Cole. And then my exec sat me down and he asked me to make a pitch about why we should keep my show. I just went, really? And it was a cost-cutting measure. So I'd been executing over a couple of other shows and had pulled up the standard of them. And he was then saying that he didn't want to pay me more money for doing that after a trial run, like similar to you. And then, well, I said, no, I'm not going to do it then. And he went, oh, okay, well, that means then that you're only delivering XX. So what are we going to do about that? And I said, well, look at the show, that there's not really anything you need to do, and unless you can think otherwise. And his response was that I needed to convince him why we should keep me on my show. And so I never ever spoke to him after that meeting, that one moment. And he went, yeah, so we'll speak. And I was like, yeah. And in my head, as soon as he said that, I was done. Walked away, never spoke again. My assistant producer was messaging me kind of like every fortnight or so, just saying, how did you ever get anything done here? And I said, I know. And I know that they were using my email account to still send to people to get guests for the show. But of course, I was clever enough. I don't feel like it was bitter, but I just feel that they were being a little bit like cloak and dagger almost, in a sense of that they were using my email account to arrange meetings, pretending to be me and interviews. And so I just sent round to all of my contacts, just so you know, I'm no longer working for. Yeah, so if you're hearing from me via email, that isn't me.
Yeah. It's so lots of people have shared, obviously I've been doing a podcast today on this, and I'm focused on this subject quite a lot in confidence, because a lot of people always say I'm very naturally confident, and I absolutely see you exuding the same traits there in terms of you're naturally confident. And they'll say things like it's knowledge, it's experience. And the irony is we know we need to just do to get the confidence, and also get the knowledge and experience. But the part you shared about right at the start there, the confidence is to have courage and belief in oneself to try. Where does your courage and belief come from, if you take that example? And like I was, because lots of people would never be that bold to go and you and I did the same. I said, yeah, it's just not going to work for me. And I was that direct about it. And it's not arrogance. It is that no, actually, I believe, I know I've got value. I know I can serve people. I know I can offer something very different in life. And I don't want this life, actually. No. Where does that confidence come from, and belief to say no?
I don't know, because obviously, like, the definition of belief is to follow something that you can't prove is actually true, right? That's what a belief is, right? I guess it's more about a happiness that you want and an experience that you want to have that led me to have the confidence to step away from things. And so I think for a lot of people, and particularly people that have worked, I'd say regular, don't take it offensively, like regular jobs, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, like of course, when they hear about the kind of world that I work in, and you talk to them and immediately about the fear factor and of, oh, but what, how do you know that it's going to be all right and that you're going to be able to do this? And at some point you don't. We've got a mutual friend who said to me, he remembers the moment, I think it was 2008. I had just lost my first job in TV, and I probably in one of these rhythms where I got a bit complacent, and I didn't work for about 6 months. I was putting out lots of feeders and scrapping about, but nothing substantial. And I had to sell my car. And I sold out a little Mini Cooper S, and I sold it for like £9,000. And I said to him, I went, this is the last 9 grand. Like I said, so this 9 grand will keep me going if I balance it well for 9 months. And this is the 9 months where I go all or nothing. So I guess maybe when I think about that, maybe on the other side of this confidence is the fear of maybe later on in life not knowing what could have been. And don't get me wrong, I still have regrets now. There's still things that I sometimes say to myself, well, you could have done more in that, you could have worked harder, etc. And I have a different approach, I guess now. I'm not as, it's weird because I'm going to say that I'm not as hungry / thirsty. And I think we talked about this in interviews and meeting scenarios, that I go into them now and I'm like, listen, I'm testing this out as much as you'll test me out. So if we move forward together and you give off such a completely different energy within these scenarios. And of course, there isn't enough good jobs and roles and opportunities for everyone. And I think for a lot of people on judging panels, they find that refreshing and almost they're intrigued about you as an individual. So even like the most recent one, my most recent client that I'm having a ball with at the moment, I took on with motorsport. It was, they took you to a particular place and they're showing up all the bells and whistles and walking you around, and you are going, okay, yeah, I'm impressed. But at the end of it was all very relaxed between me and them, because I just kept reiterating, saying, well, I need to understand what it is you're looking for me to do, because I know what my skill set is. I know what I don't want to be doing. So if this isn't natural or feeling good for me, then I will walk away from it, because money is not something that I chase. I kind of feel that if I maintain my integrity and stay true to myself, the universe does something on my behalf. And, we listen to a lot of the same podcasters, don't we? And this idea of, if you can align your purpose with your skill set and what you do, and do it from a place of service, then it will work itself out. And I'm very aware that all of these things, even that I'm saying, though, are very privileged. If people that listen to this and go, oh yeah, but it's all right to say, oh yeah, but you don't need money, or you don't need this and you don't need that. But I don't know. I guess you just try and negotiate it for yourself. There are sacrifices that need to be made at the same time. So after selling my car and not working, I was waiting tables at TGI Fridays at one point. While my other friends was doing careers, earning good money, getting bonuses in recruitment or whatever it was. But I very much had my eye on my prize and idea that I had for the life that I wanted to lead, rather than being trapped in something, I guess. And that's how I see it. Again, that's a personal opinion, this entrapment of the 9 to 5 that I see it.
Yeah, I think that there's loads of in that, this alignment with your skill set and what you want to do. And I think what's really coming through for me of yourself is this idea of knowing what you want and what you don't want. And some people say that around confidence, it's knowing as well. And that can help them in terms of being more confident also. There's definite parts in that around, for some people, and I know that, I get this feedback similar to that, there's an element of risk in this, isn't it? And lots of people aren't prepared to take risk. I very much see that by not doing this has the potential that if I don't even try, I'll never achieve. I don't know. It's a fear of not having lived a life on my terms and achieved purpose on my terms. That's what fears me more than just not. I can't not give it a go.
Yeah. And I guess from what you're saying there, that even the idea of to take risk it almost aligns with work ethic to a certain extent, and I'm not saying some people, the people out there, people work hard and smart and in different ways, but this idea of it's only contributing towards something over a long time is how you reap the benefits. But of course, we live in this society where there's instant gratification, and you see all this stuff showing you about how you should be and what you should have to matter and be validated. But you're only seeing the outcome on your social timeline. You know what I mean? There's so much that goes into that. And from any perspective, like looking at mine, I'm nowhere up the chain in my world of work, in a sense of, you know, I'm not on primetime TV presenting, etc. But there are sacrifices that I've made at points on my journey so that I could keep particular avenues open to myself. And then at the same time, I feel that within myself, if you show me a chink of an opportunity, I will slam my way through that door. And, you know, I've got some friends that might always pick the easier option, or, you know, might be shy of something because that's too much hard work. And you're like, well, you're complaining about your experience and your situation, but you don't want to put in the work ethic to do anything about it. And it's tough. And I guess you can align that even with how people look after themselves, right? And, you know, we both exercise regularly, and we talk about how important that is, you know, physical health that then impacts mental health. And then you can worry about your experience after that. But people don't just wake up and are physically healthy nowadays, and particularly the options that are open to you within the food market with regards to the nutrition that's in certain foods. You have to educate yourself. You know, we're purposefully kept uneducated on food so that we buy the bad stuff. But that takes work and time, and you have to go out and find information yourself, and then you've got to commit to going and exercising yourself and put that amongst your priorities in life. But then if you do that kind of stuff, the energy that comes out of you, you naturally feel better. So if you're on a journey talking about confidence, it's like your spark is beginning to glow better because you're feeding yourself properly, you know, and I don't just mean that with what you consume, but I mean your experience and what you're having, how you're nourishing your soul.
Yeah, sure. And look, people want to be around people that they like, and people that have that energy and bring the best out of them, don't they? They want to people want to feel good, and that's the part where we say about, like you said, instant gratification things. But it's about, I think, like again, you said, knowing yourself really well, but finding that dopamine in a way that is consistent and sustainable as well, not just a hit. In terms of growing, and I think that's the same with confidence. You've got to understand what works really well for you, and sometimes just do more of that as well. What qualities do people that you see with confidence have in particular?
Returning almost along the same line of what we've been talking about, I guess it's this element to be a self-starter, and to have, this is almost like delving into some of the other May training courses, in fact. And like I said to you, the more that you'll become familiar with them, the more that you'll see that you already do a lot of it, but the acknowledgement helps, and then it helps you return to that trigger of program of training. But the motivation to do. So if we return to this analogy again of exercise, right? No one can motivate you to do it. You've got to find that spark within you, and it's the same thing in every area of your life. So if you want to start a podcast, some people will sit there and like the idea of doing it. Some people actually do it. And I don't, it's for any realm really that you want to do. You want to start a business, be some kind of entrepreneur. Again, these are ones that I look at and think to myself, oh, you know, I'd love to do that. And then, but it takes so much energy, I know, to get a business off the ground and to make it into something, but of course, over a long time. So it's almost like I'm a hypocrite in the stuff that I'm saying there, because I think, yeah, you know, I'd like to do this, I'd like to do that. But then I know that the experience I'm having at the moment, I'm enjoying, and I enjoy the balance. And sometimes I worry that to become a starter of things now would upend that balance for me personally. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know, for yourself, Natalie, all the energy you're putting into things now, it's almost like, I don't know, the universe presents you with an opportunity to do it. Right, and so for you, it was that Sainsbury's. Sorry, said them out loud. Shouldn't have. It's that moment. I tried so hard earlier.
Fine.
And it's like that moment where all of a sudden the world opens up for you, and it might feel like a negative at first, but maybe it's not. Maybe this is the opportunity that you've been waiting for. If you look at lockdown and what it did to a lot of people, for some people it was everything they could have needed to reassess, but for some people it was horrible because of that identity thing that we talked about again.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I've reflected a lot on that recently, especially like looking at confidence. But I was super confident in Sainsbury's. Like nothing scared me at all. Like if you asked me to go talk to a board of directors, anything, I would go and do it, to the point where there'd probably some people probably say who she thinks she is. But it never used to make me nervous because, and I thought, well, again, what's the reason for that? The reason was I'd worked there 19 years. My knowledge was spot on. I'd worked all of my way up through. Yeah. So my experience of 19 years working with people as well, you know, I often think NHS, kids, being a vet are some of the harder things to do, you know, working with people and things. And teaching's really challenging. But I think that because I'd had that knowledge and experience, nothing made me nervous, nothing made me scared, nothing made me fearful of anything. I just think, well, do you know what's worse can happen? Go for it. And some of that was good, but this is where I've then had to invite, you know, different challenges into my life recently to feel a bit more out of my comfort zone and to look at taking my confidence to a different level and looking at how I really challenge. I think, like we've said before, like, you know, you're seeking, it's nothing to do with money and all of that stuff. It's the inner fulfillment, energy about, I just want something that challenges me more mentally or in a different way. That's what I'm seeking. And then that's what can come away. But that's where I found that actually I then need to I've really tapped into how much do I believe in myself and what I want to do and what does that look like. And that's where life becomes more interesting and not, I guess I'm scared of it being me joker and default of, like you said, what society underpins I should be doing. That scares the life out of me.
Yeah, that's I was talking to my friend at the weekend actually, and he's very much leaning towards it, you know, conspiracy theories and the programming of the state and all of that stuff. But you're completely right. You know, we get thrown all this programming about expectation and what you should be doing with yourself, and you know, what your priorities should be and what you should be aiming towards. You got to remember 99.9% of those are to keep the capitalist train going, right? It's about you working within that system that keeps that bubble of money flowing and going. But it doesn't mean that you can't step off. It can be terrifying. And I imagine if you are, you know, many years deep into a particular working world, it would be terrifying to step away from it. But it's probably about asking yourself how happy you are, you know, and at some point your happiness has got to take a priority. I've been encouraging my parents recently to take a long hard look at that, because, you know, they're both almost 60 and they seem to be working harder than ever, you know, for someone else. They don't own their own business, right? Working harder than ever. They've added big commutes either side, and they're actually starting to get quite sick. And I started asking them to like analyze what makes them happy. What's the point of it all if you're gonna die? Like, I'm not saying they're gonna die imminently, but I say, you know, you're killing yourself into the ground, and for what? And for a bigger house and a better car and other stuff that they seem to still be acquiring. And you know, stuff is stuff to me personally, and I know I've had to go through my experiences to get the other side of this. You know, not everybody has an existential crisis at 31, 32 and says to themselves, what am I doing? Because, well, like everyone else, I fell hook, line, sinker for it. So at 30 years old, I bought my first flat. I bought a brand new Mercedes. I bought myself a posh watch. My girlfriend was a trainee lawyer, but I realized I was miserable. And then, you know, I had to figure out why I was miserable and what I was going to do about it. And the first stop was going to Brazil for the World Cup. That was fun. And then coming back and being a bit more responsible and saying, okay, so how do I make a living? What's going to nourish me to a certain extent? And just realigning myself. And I read Russell Brand's book as well, Revolution. Revolution. Yeah, that's the one before, right? So I read that and I was like, Yeah, Russell, you're right. The bit that stuck with me the most was anybody who's doing anything to excess, it's because you're trying to fill a void.
Yeah.
And that void is your unhappiness. It's you're unhappy because there's all this stuff about you're going to work for someone else and being told what to do when, and being told that you need this but you can't get it if you want to be happy. But so that's why you drink or you gamble or you know sleep around or all of that stuff. It's because you're trying to get these little seeds of kick, where really you need to look at the bigger picture and see if you can get some more day-to-day kick, but maybe not the same kind of artificial one.
Yeah. And that's what we were saying earlier, isn't it? That you need that part. And actually what you're doing is self-sabotage, or you're just, like you say, you're filling that void, but you're not really unpacking, exploring what's underneath that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. One of them is human connection. You know, you should be speaking with like-minded folk, you know, and that's something to get hooked on. You know, like when we've had coffees and even doing this now, and these kind of conversations that you have are just wonderful for your own soul. But I guess maybe there's even a balance within that. But the artificial stuff. Another thing that Brand said in his book, that was, we've stopped being human beings that have connections, and we are just human doings. So all we do the whole time is do. We're never we're never present, are we? And it's key. Final one for you. Well, who has been your best mentor and why? Yeah, I thought about this, and I mean, I don't know if I like to say best, because I think that there's ones that you've had for different reasons on different occasions. So, let's change it up then. So who has been a mentor that's had a big impact in your life in a positive way, and why? Does that help? Yeah, okay. I've already mentioned it once already, but I've got to give a shout out, and you've mentioned it. Sander de Groot from May Training. Now, when I met Sander, I had never met anyone like him before. And he's got an artistic, creative background, but when you talk to him and you just watch his mind start to go, and before you know it, he's writing stuff in front of you and drawing out sheets and showing you, you know, you're just sitting there almost like brainstorming a little idea, and he's bringing it to life there and then in front of you. And the May Training courses, the total learning package, as I said, it's been as much a pleasure to deliver them as to be exposed to them. And if we go back to this idea of confidence and the courage to try and put yourself out there, you know, he worked in a field of motivation and study skills for another organization, and he was their head of training, etc., and had these big ideas about what they could do. They didn't want to do it, so he went, I'm just going to do it myself. And it's something that I really admire, like when he was telling me the story about it, and it hasn't been easy. We don't always get on completely, you know, we've clashed at points, but he's someone I massively respect and have a lot of admiration for his ability to, I'm not going to say to do is to dare, because that's Spurs' logo, and I don't like Tottenham Hotspur. But I'm going to say his ability to dare to do. There we go. Let's change it up, even though I've still given Tottenham Hotspur a shout out. But yeah, Sander, wonderful gentleman as well. And anytime I go in with him and the May Training team, whether it be 3 of us, 7 of us, you come out energized. Not only about the content, but about yourself. And similarly, like I said to you, about the experience that you have in delivering the sessions and how great they are for you, as much as, you know, you're there doing an occupation. It's given me a lot of purpose working for his organization. And when you work with young people who, let's say, are a bit despondent towards education and a bit apathetic about their own future, and you can see in them this newfound confidence and belief. And I'll show them bits about my own journey, etc. But like when you see that, because you're then in a room with them, and they're just like, yeah, this is just a normal guy, but oh my God, he's gone on to do all this stuff, and he's shown me the pathway. I talk about the mistakes I've made, where I went and worked in insurance for a year at 16, but I needed to make that mistake so I could be exposed to that, to understand that that is absolutely what I don't want. So Sander has been wonderful. I've got to give a shout out to my dad as well. My dad, we don't have the most conventional relationship, but as an actor who has worked for like the Royal Shakespeare Company and done some great stuff in his career, he gave me the belief that life could be different, you know, that you didn't have to surrender to the 9 to 5. And again, I'm not criticizing anybody that does do that, but for myself personally, it just wasn't going to work, and it wouldn't work now. And I hope I can keep riding this wave I'm currently on. Who knows, I might get found out at some point. There's that little bit of imposter syndrome like everybody talks about. But yeah, I'm enjoying it, and long may it continue.
Good for you. And I think just the note I just reflect on from there of Made Training is the part about going into schools and empowering kids and showing them that, you know, that they can do, etc., and sharing some great things is a unique opportunity. But also, just I remember when, you know, my confidence shifted when I was young I was always told in reports I'm not very confident, ironically, and it was drama. It was my drama teacher that turned and said to me, he was like, yeah, that's really good. And his energy, everything, I loved it, absolutely loved it. And that took me on to do a drama degree and etc. So that person at the time, I didn't have the knowledge and I didn't have the experience in drama. It was someone else having that belief and something they saw in me that sparked something of like, because I enjoyed it, but I didn't know what that meant. That was like, actually, I can go with this, and finding that belief in myself. And it's just really interesting how that all comes together so much. So
we all remember our best teachers, though, don't we? You know, in these formative years, and they're so crucial when you're in that moment. I think you are molding that belief and confidence there and then. So if you aren't exposed to maybe just one adult that tells you that you are good and you can do, you then become someone in your early 20s who has never been exposed to that, and you then spend your whole life not believing that you can do, and that even if you did put your effort in, you're the kind of person that it doesn't happen to. I just think you need, even if it's one, like you say, you were exposed to, and I'm sure everyone remembers that teacher that gave them the little bit of belief in themselves to begin. It's again that idea of just, you need a little first step in that spark within you and that energy, and then a whole lot can be achieved.
Yeah, I love that. James, where can people connect with you?
I'm online, Instagram. I don't live on it, but, you know, at James Afrobuzz, if they want to give me a shout, they can check out my work on jamessherwood.net. If anybody wants to give me a job, I always like collaborating with new people. So, you know, come and give me a shout, and bear me in mind for anything that comes up. But yeah, otherwise I'll be out and around, shining as much as I can, hopefully not being too annoying to anybody. Someone asked me the other day to express my character in 3 words, and one of the words I used was contagious. And they said, what does that mean? And I said, well, some people initially may not like it, but again, it just eventually engulfs you and you just go, all right then.
It's unique. Yeah, I asked someone for feedback the other day and they said, and it was like intriguing, and I was like, let's not continue this conversation. So yeah, great words. Thank you so much for your time. That was an amazing conversation, as I knew it would be.
No problem, my dear. Have a good one. Hopefully see you in person soon.
Thank you.
All right, lots of love.
Thank you for listening to Being Confident from Within. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and it inspired you in trusting no matter what happens in any particular situation, you'll be able to handle it and learn from the outcome. I really love hearing from you, so please leave a review and let me know which part of the episode resonated with you the most. Have an amazing day.